Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Millen Sharma Show. I'm your host, Millen, and today my guest is Malayna Cherry, who is a classmate with me at Eastern University. She's a graduate from 2022, and she double majored in psychology and criminal justice. And currently, she is a registered behavioral technician working with children of autism. And Malayna, welcome to the show. It's great
Thank
to
you.
have you.
Hi.
So, to start off, I'd love to ask you, how did you get interested in this field of working with children?
Um, I always knew I wanted to work with children, just didn't know what exactly. But my guidance counselor told me about being a behavior technician and like what that entailed because I was kind of nervous about graduating and finding like a good job that wouldn't have me stuck. So I listened to her, and here I am a year later, still here, register.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've known you for at least a year now, and from what I remembered, you did an internship with criminal justice, and you didn't really do an internship with, or correct me if I'm wrong, did you do an internship with psychology or
I
no?
did both.
You did both.
Yeah.
Okay. So were you exposed to working with kids at all before you started this job now?
Not in college, but before college, I
Mm-hmm.
was working with kids.
Mm-hmm. How so?
It was like a camp counselor kind of thing, like a summer job. But that was like my very first job at 16, and then after that, like I didn't really work again until my internships.
Mm-hmm. So you've been in this field since the summer of graduating. What are some of the biggest things you've learned about working with children with disabilities, autism?
Definitely takes a lot of patience. Uh, I'm just learning how to like be more, what's the term, more gentle with like how I talk to children. I mean, I've never had a problem before, but learning how to like talk to them and like be their friend and pair with them before you start being like an authoritative adult. Because you can learn from just being like a friend or someone to help, and just educating children altogether. Like I'm learning how to basically um, work from work academically with children on what they need, and sometimes home skills, whatever their parents want them to do, like you can just do at home.
Nice. So with this field, you obviously learn a lot about child development. Would you agree with that? With like through your training and seeing how children develop from a young age,
Yes.
how do you believe, uh, or does this would this help you with like being a parent someday if that's something you aspire to be?
Yeah, definitely. I aside from changing diapers every day and like I'm learning how to potty train a child, it's kind of surreal. I never thought I would be doing this as a job. Like eventually, you're told as a mom that's what you do. But I feel like I'm learning all the skills and just the skills to take care of children before I even like make that decision. Like have my own family. So it's very interesting. It's definitely a learning process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say so too. Like with working with kids and everything you've done, uh, I remember we've talked in the past about a lot of parents, and me and my mother said this as well, that it should be necessary to for parents to take a psychology course or like some sort of class, maybe not in person, but like some sort of instruction.
Oh yeah.
Has this solidified your belief in that?
Yes.
How so?
Because now I'm thinking every parent should be in a master's, getting a master's in child development and growth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think like uh, it's very important to know how the human brain works before you have a child and try to like raise them on your own, because this is a totally different person. They may have come from you or come out of you, but it's still a person.
Hmm.
So, um, yeah, I think learning how their brains work and how like not every kid is not the same developmentally and mentally, it's helped open my eyes, because I'm no longer afraid of having like a child with disabilities, because
Hmm.
now I know how to handle them, at least with autism.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of people have an idea of how to raise their child or children before they have a child,
Mm-hmm.
and learning how people develop or children develop, I think, is really important because how you discipline them, I'm not, in my opinion, has to change, is different from different age groups.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that you talked to me about with your job is how, and obviously it's different than raising your own kid and dealing with other children. So I'm not saying it's the same thing, but you you have to connect with them in a certain way in order to seek a desired result. Whether that's, and you can go into this much more than me, but completing their daily tasks and being rewarded for that. So, what's something that you've learned from your work that you believe you can apply with your own life when you have children one day? If that's a desire of yours, what's something that you could apply from your work to your own life that you didn't really know about previously?
I would say the term gentle parenting. I think a lot of people misconstrue that into like being permissive with your child, but in reality, it's just teaching them consequences that don't strip them of their like humanity and their dignity. Because even if they have messed up, or like say they spill something on the floor and they're like 4 or 3 years old, they're just learning their motor skills. You don't have to yell at them or like slap them for spilling something. They're learning how to like maneuver. Um, but on like with more levels, with discipline, it's teaching me how to give them options instead of like forcing them to uh, be like embarrassed about what they did. Like you teach them how to apologize and like not hit, all the basic things, without stripping them of like their dignity. Um, because I don't believe in like embarrassing children and like whooping them in public. Like there's just so many things online. It's terrible. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
videos of like moms like ripping their children's hair out. It's crazy. So like gentle parenting, it's just about giving children options and reinforcing like good behavior. And with bad behavior, you just don't reinforce that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting because I've seen I've seen parents like yell at kids to the point of like they're crying and really upset about doing something,
Mm-hmm.
but not coming from the background that you come from, at least with the work you do. But I've noticed that a child would have much more fear and anxiousness over their parental figure than actually learning the lesson that the parent wants to enforce on their child. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
I think. Do you believe that that's like a big problem with parenting nowadays? Obviously, we're both really young, but if that isn't, like, what do you believe is like uh, something that's very like permissive? That's like kind of broadly speaking, something you've seen with your family or something you've seen with my family or anybody in general. That's kind of the wrong thing with parenting. That's kind of commonly used.
Um, I would definitely say like whooping and
Mm.
beating. A lot of that, like it's a lot of it's unnecessary, because you're only teaching the child. Um, that like if you do this, you're gonna get beaten instead of teaching them like what they should be doing. Um, Corporal punishment, it's kind of an umbrella term at this point, but you can still like give consequences without um, humiliating them and causing like physical harm. So I'm just a really firm believer in like giving options and teaching them what to do instead. Because when you beat a child or like you're just very hard on them, you're not teaching them anything. You're just teaching them to be afraid of you.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's true. I don't think it's good to have fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. One thing I'm curious about uh, is like when you tell people about the work you do, whether that's like in church or close people in your life or people that are your acquaintances. What's the like, or at least from what? Let me ask you this because I don't want to assume the reactions people give you. But in my assumption, a lot of people would say, "Oh, you need a lot of patience for that," which I'm sure you've heard, and you've told me that just today.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what's something that like you kind of that you think is not uh, really received from them in what you actually do? If you understand what I mean by that, like,
Yeah.
yeah. Let me just let you take it from here.
um, yeah, I think that's literally the only thing I ever hear is, "Oh, it's so hard. It's you need so much patience," or "I applaud you for that." But there's never any like questions about specifically what I do, or they just can never like imagine themselves in my shoes because it's like the cause is very noble, um, but it's almost like I sometimes like feel like ashamed of what I'm doing because there's never any like good feedback when I do tell people like they applaud me, but they really just feel sorry for me.
Hmm.
And it's not even about me. Like it's for the kids. I'm not trying to get a reward. Like no
Right.
Nobel Peace Prize, but um, I guess uh I don't hear like a lot of questions, and I'm immediately asked if like I want to stay there, and it kind of like it kind of like makes you spiral into a frenzy because it's like, should I be here or like should I stay here? Um, yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Hmm. Yeah. I think people should ask more questions personally, just because I don't have the data right on me right now, but definitely in the 21st century, there's been an increase in a lot of children with disabilities, whether that's autism, nonverbal, behavioral um, concerns growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of people, when hearing about it, they kind of look at it through the lens of holding a 10-inch pole away from them.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense, kind of like, ooh, like, and I think maybe you sense that when you tell me that people ask you in that way because it's kind of like they're having their hand out, uh, as if they want to talk about it, but they don't want to go into it too deeply because there's a fear that they don't want to have that type of
Yeah.
child, or they don't want to deal with that
Mm-hmm.
in their own capacity. Um, and I think for me personally, I dealt with nonverbal concerns when I was very young, like 3 years old, 3 years old, and I've definitely come a long way from that. And that's why I think it's really important what you're doing, because I think a lot of people believe that kids like this are kind of stuck here and there's no room for them to grow or no
Mm-hmm.
room for them to change. And I don't think that's true.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, like coming from not that I can relate to every single person, because that'd be foolish to say that, but there's definitely like a lot of them feel lonely because socially they feel very ostracized if people don't socialize with them, and they feel like they can't open this door to good opportunities. So I think obviously it's very noble of you to do that, but I think people should ask you more questions about it also,
Yeah.
because I think it's very likely that the people that talk to you, a lot of them know someone in their own family that has that deals with autism
Mm-hmm.
or some sort of nonverbal disability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you're an RBT, um, there are a lot of doors open for you because you can literally like babysit any kid. You can like become a paraprofessional, do like nannying services or whatever, like, and take what you've been learning in ABA, applied behavior analysis, into like the children that you're with, whether it's your own or not. Obviously, I can't like diagnose anyone or give them treatment without supervision, but I, things that I have learned you can apply to in daily life. Um, and I guess when people ask, and I get into those conversations, they don't realize how like resourceful someone like that can be because I'm certified. I'm a professional. I can like help you and I can give you the resources to even other places to help with your kid. But um, obviously, there's like limitations. Yeah, I think people they don't ask enough questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think your role is very important too, because a lot of people, like you said, obviously psychiatrists or doctors, like their role is more of the diagnosing part.
Mm.
But a lot of people, in my opinion, won't ever get to that point of taking their child to a doctor and learning more about this if someone like you or anyone else isn't like pointing out like these things aren't, like you should look into certain behaviors that your child's doing,
Yeah,
because they need that kind of light, that like eye opening moment to kind of see that, and you can definitely inform them of that.
yeah.
So you mentioned ABA, applied behavior analysis. For those that don't know that full term, we took a course in that senior year.
Hmm.
What skill do you believe or technique is helpful with like getting, I hate to use kids like an experiment, but like getting the best result as far as like disciplining certain children, or whether they have disabilities or not? What's something that you believe is universal, or a technique that you learned from that class? Or if not that class, is somehow connected with the work you do?
Definitely positive reinforcement. Because we do it every day, even as adults. Like the things that drive us and motivate us to get up, do work, and be an adult. It works for children, especially. And I know people have differences of opinions because they think it's like for pets and dogs, but we literally do it every day. There's not much of a difference besides the like severity of our tasks, besides child's.
And a pet.
Yeah, and a
Right,
pet.
right.
Um, I think like when you are rewarded and you have something to look forward to, like it makes things more meaningful. If we're going to talk about it on a deeper level, um, but I think like as you get older, you do learn that you won't get a reward for everything, and you have to like get up and go to work and do things that I guess other things that don't necessarily reward you. But I I think like um, the difference is with children we have um, longer goals that we want to complete that take that has us waiting longer. But with children it's like faster. I forgot the word for it. Like it's a faster motivation to get whatever candy or whatever toy. Um, they haven't learned how to be patient, how to act nicely, and to wait for things. And literally, some of our programs that we do as RBTs is to teach kids how to wait for things, how to act nicely, and basic etiquette skills. But I think when they go to school and they have to socialize, it teaches them to also teach their friends how to do that stuff because they're modeling that behavior. I don't know where I was going with this, but it's like a trickle down effect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what would you say to children that could be very smart and manipulative? Because you even talked to me with this about this in the past, where some kids that you work with are very smart, and I think everyone kind of knows this. Like they know, like children are smart. It doesn't matter how young they are. Like
Mm-hmm.
they know maybe it's on an unconscious level, but a lot of children know how to handle certain situations and get what they want without behaving in the way that you'd want them to, and evoking a reaction from you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of parents are someone in that parental nannies, like in that role, they fall into the trap of like giving a child what they want if they start crying incessantly or start screaming and things like that. And I see you nodding your head right now, so you know what I mean. So, what would you say to like people that their parents that are asking that question, like my child doesn't listen to me, or like they freak out all the time, so I have to give them a cookie. I had to shut them up and give them a cookie because I had a long day at work,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard for me to go to sleep. And I just want to like, I want to solve this problem that like they're not eating the vegetables for dinner at night or anything like that. What would you say is like the best course of action for like people to take, or your own opinion about that?
So it's funny. Me and my coworkers always talk about this, what we see in public, but um, it's important to not reinforce the crying and the kicking and screaming. So if you're giving your kid the cookie every time they kick and scream, they're gonna kick and scream every time they want a cookie. Um, and I think like teaching them to wait and saying no to them even when they are screaming their heads off is beneficial because obviously you tell them like I'm not going to give this to you if you're kicking and screaming, like you need to act nicely, um, use your words. The more that you enforce that, like the less that behavior will occur because now they're doing something that's more socially acceptable to earn that. um, it is hard though because you do have children that kick you and punch you and like throw chairs. Like sometimes it's not going to be as easy. Um, and that's, where the de escalation comes in. It's the same thing though. Like you can't get what you want, especially if you're going to hit others and, you know, cause more chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, you never pay attention to that behavior, but obviously you want things to be safe. Just don't like reinforce the bad behavior. Teach them how to act nicely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do think over a long period of time, uh, it's not good for the child either. Because if,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, this is just my opinion, nothing factual, but I would assume that you could make a child more spoiled and narcissistic in not getting their own way if they can, if because their behavior is dictating what they get. It's not what they're actually doing out of service to their mother or father or whoever they're with. It's like their reaction is getting something they want. So if they react in a poor way and kicking and screaming, they get a cookie for that. Who's to say, like 5 to 10 years from now, may not be in the form of crying or screaming, but like a lot of people that won't may not want to be around them because they always want their way every single time.
Right.
And I think both of us know who those types of people are and don't want to be around them because they're not that pleasant. Um, so, but yeah, I like to transition to something a little bit different. So, obviously, you told me from the beginning this sort of work takes a lot of patience. It comes from a good place in your heart, and that's what motivates you. So with doing this, obviously, or even the weekends or any other time, like what's a healthy way that you cope with like some of the stressors that you deal with in this line of work?
So I recently have been finding better ways to cope besides doom scrolling and um, just sitting around. I read books. I read like my favorite genres, and um, I try to be more consistent in my writing, and actually following through with finishing books and things that I've been wanting to publish. And I can do that for hours. I can read for hours. I can write for hours. And it's funny because when I tell people that, it's like it seems boring and it seems very like robotic when you tell people that, but I actually mean it when I say like I read and I write. um, I would say those are the best things for my mind because I'm like stimulated. I'm not just consuming meaningless junk all day.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do think we need more of that in our lives. More people that do things like that because nothing. There's not really great stories to share. I don't even mean your stories literally, like writing, but there's not much anything meaningful to share with others when you're scrolling mindlessly after work or whatever. Because the best thing you can do is like show somebody else a post that someone else did, and
Yep.
there's nothing wrong with that. But over a long period of time, when it's not your own work or not work necessarily, but when it's nothing that you kind of created, there's not really much of stimulation coming from that mentally. Like, there's not much of a creativity coming from that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I talked about with some of my friends too, with like doing things more creatively, like making skits or videos, things like that. That's a fun way to cope after work or like something that you do yourself. So with writing, uh, when did you kind of discover this passion of yours? Like,
Oh man, I think I was like 11 and I discovered fan fiction. And this was around the time I was having like very like just a tough childhood, living with my dad and my stepmom. So I would just like read other people's work on Tumblr like for hours. I would pull all nighters reading, and then it became like a thing where I would mimic like what I would read, and I would write my own stories with people that I wanted, like celebrities, all that stuff, and give them to my friends for them to read, like just my own little circle. And then it was like years that went by, and I just kept writing, and people would ask me to write like stories for them.
wow.
And there was one time in middle school where I got like caught writing fan fiction, and my guidance counselor was like reading it like right there in the lunchroom with my friends, and I was like mortified because it was nothing an 11-year-old should be writing. I'll just put that out there. But she literally read it, gave it back to me, said nothing, and walked away. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I can never share anything like ever again. So that's when I started getting more like stingy with what I
Hmm.
wanted to write, and
Right.
I still write, but like of course I'll change the names around, and I just like to use certain celebrities as like characters, I guess. Um, and yeah, like I have archives of stories that I've never published or went public with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I guess now it's like I write more for myself. And if someone wants to read it, then maybe they'll read it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It sounds very personal to you.
It is.
What makes it personal to you? What about it is personal?
um, I told one friend a long time ago that like a lot of my stories are based on real events that have happened in my life and kind of like memoirs, but in another person's life or like another universe kind of thing with different people. Some of the things people have said or like done, like I rewrite into my own stories and like make up like a happier ending, sort of kind of thing. And I think the best way I coped with my childhood trauma was writing, like writing stories that like wasn't my life. Basically being delusional.
Wow. Okay. So, would you say like did the I think you said the guidance counselor or someone when you're 11 years old see that? Did that you said you got stingy? Did
Mm-hmm.
that deter you from writing, or did you just do it more secretly in your room, or like what? How did that affect you?
It deterred me from being from sharing
Okay.
from sharing what I would write.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I from then on I was just like, maybe I should be a little more cautious about what I write. Um, because you know how when children go through things and it comes out like in school, whatever they hear at home, they start saying in school. It was kind of like that, like whatever was going on at home, I would write about, give it to my friends, and realize like I didn't realize that until now that that was like my way of projecting what was happening. So then my guidance counselor read it. I was like, oh no, she's gonna like call my dad or something, but that never happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of grateful for that.
Yeah, that's funny. That's interesting you said that because I do believe children project a lot of what their family or wherever they're living go like happens with them
Mm-hmm.
into other settings. It's interesting that I guess you projected it in that way. I don't think I've really heard of that too often because I would, from what I think, if you're dealing with a lot of like troubling things that are going on,
Mm-hmm.
usually it comes out in the form of like behavioral outbursts or misbehaving in school or classes, at least in my mind. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I guess for me, my way of rebelling was writing.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's safe. Nothing too wrong with that.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even I'd say elementary and middle school, I would journal. Like, I was insane. I would reread my old journals in high school. I think I did this, and I'd be like, why was I so angry as a child? Like, I would look back and I'd be like, all these thoughts and these things that were going on in my head, and the only outlet I had was just writing. So I guess it was healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's better than drugs or anything life altering to you.
Hmm.
So even I could say even in the past when I've dealt with strong emotions as an adult, 18 years old, 19, I would definitely like, journal and listen to loud music. But I've noticed, maybe you can talk about that. You're nodding your head now. I noticed that for me personally, listening to loud music kind of suppressed what I was feeling because once I turned off the music, I kind of had those thoughts again and reliving the bad memories or whatever that was. And actually writing it down for me just felt like I released it all out on paper and just felt much better. But yeah, did you use music at all or
Oh yeah,
growing up?
I was definitely an emo kid. Still am die hard emo kid. I don't think I'll ever outgrow that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you? Is that something you ever did together? Did you listen to music and write, or is that just like kind of separate?
I don't I don't think so. I can't recall. I think when I listened to loud music, I was definitely like daydreaming though that I was like a rock star or something. I asked my dad. He was the one that witnessed me like dancing around my room all the time. Like, but I got it from him. So,
Mm.
the loud music, the rock rock music and all of that is from him,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
not together.
Okay. Cool. So let me ask you, kind of transitioning to another topic here. It's being a year and change out of graduating from 2022. Right now, it's July 2023 at the time of this recording. What would you say to people that are just graduated across the country or feeling anxious about a path in life they should take, whether that's a job, whether that's like what direction they want to go in? What, like, give them your 2 cents here. Like, what's something, any tips or advice you would give to them that are feeling that way?
um, I'm still feeling that way, but
Mm-hmm.
I think I would just say not to have too high of an expectation and to really like give yourself time to figure out what you want to do, what would make you happy, and um, enjoy being an adult because I think so many people have this misconception that adulthood is just like, oh, the misery, like you have bills and there's never any fun time, but like it's what you make it. And as long as you have something to look forward to, maybe at the end of every week or every day, like life is tolerable, I promise. um, but I think taking that time to like um, understand the career that you're going into or the passions that you have, understanding like this, what kind of steps you need to take, talking to people and networking and finding people that are also like on the similar path is important because it's depending on where you are can be very competitive. And sorry, my coworkers are the ones that have really helped me with deciding what I wanted to do because they were also in the same situation. So I think I would say like taking that time and then finding people who are in the same field and like going through the same thing as you, possibly the same age group, it does like wonders because you realize you're not alone. Yeah.
Great. Well, Malayna, thank you for coming on and speaking to me about your career and interests and giving some advice to those listening.
Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed that segment of the Nolan Sharma Show, consider subscribing and clicking the link in the description section to follow the show on all of your favorite audio platforms. Also, consider supporting the show if you really enjoy my mission of having powerful conversations through civil discourse. Cheers.